A jury finds Orleans Parish DA Jason Williams not guilty on all 10 counts in his federal tax fraud trial.
But the jury did find his former law partner, Nicole Burdett, guilty on the 4 separate counts that she was facing that related to her personal tax returns. And we have team coverage for you tonight, beginning with eyewitness investigator David Hammer and starting with Erica Ferrando, who followed the trial from the beginning. And Erica, how did Williams respond to the verdict?
Katie, when the verdict came down, Jason Williams had mixed emotions in that courtroom. On the one hand, his law partner was found guilty. She could face fines and prison time, but he will walk away a free man as the jury found him not guilty, and his attorney said he is now home relaxing with his family.
Justice works.
After 16 hours of deliberation, followed by about a dozen testimonies over the last week, a jury found Jason Williams not guilty of tax fraud.
There was nothing there. Billy and I always thought this should never even have been here in the courthouse. So the jury clearly felt the same way.
Williams attorneys Lisa Monet Wayne and Billy Gibbons called it a tough trial, but ultimately they won the case as the government failed to prove Williams was guilty on account of conspiring to defraud the United States, 5 counts of falsifying his tax returns, and 4 counts of failing to report cash payments.
We want to thank the jury for their service. In our system of government, people are innocent until proven guilty. Although we may not always agree with the jury, we respect the work that they've done in this case.
While prosecutors argued the proof was in the tax documents that included improper tax deductions, throughout the trial, defense put the blame on tax preparer Henry Timothy, while arguing there was no evidence Williams intentionally lied on his taxes.
He needs to move on, and he will do that.
But the jury did find Williams' law partner Nicole Burdett guilty on 4 counts she faced separately for reducing her tax burden by $130,000 over 4 years.
Jason's heartbroken for that for Nicole. She shouldn't have been caught up in this.
Her attorney Mike Magner said in a statement Nicole was collateral damage of a politically motivated and wrong-headed prosecution, one that resulted in not guilty verdicts on 10 counts. There is no way that Nicole ever would have been charged but for the government's overreach.
Nicole would have never been under the radar but for the fact that they wanted Jason.
And Nicole Burdett will be sentenced on September 30th. And as for Jason Williams, he will continue his role as district attorney. From the federal courthouse, Erica Ferrando, Eyewitness News.
All right, Erica, thank you. And David Hammer was in the courtroom today as those verdicts were being read, describing those sobs of sorrow from Burdett and bittersweet tears of relief from Williams. David's also live outside of federal court for us right now with a look at what's next for them. David?
Yeah, Katie, it would have only taken one guilty verdict against Jason Williams to force him out of office as Orleans Parish District Attorney. Instead, it was not guilty on all 10 counts that had to do with his personal taxes and where he was named as a defendant as opposed to Nicole Burdett. And now Williams hopes that he can move on from his federal trial and back to his elected duties running the criminal justice system in the city of New Orleans.
The city of New Orleans should be relieved that their DA can get back to doing what he needs to do for this city.
Jason Williams' defense attorneys say he's ready to move forward after his acquittal on federal tax fraud charges. But the question is, how will the mere fact of being prosecuted affect Williams' own work as a prosecutor? Former DA Harry Connick Sr. also faced federal charges while in office in 1990. He was also acquitted and stayed in office. But former U.S. Attorney Harry Rosenberg says it still left a black mark on Connick's career.
Reminds me a bit of when Harry Connick was prosecuted here in the federal courthouse, and that was over 30 years ago, and he still has somewhat of a cloud hanging over his head even after the acquittal.
Now, if anything, Rosenberg says that Williams might get a bump in the short term. He called it a bump as the attorneys in his office celebrate his exoneration. But in the long term, he's going to be remembered more for how he fights violent crime in the city of New Orleans than anything that happened in this trial. Reporting from federal court in downtown New Orleans, David Hammer, Eyewitness News.